So I'm trying to deliver because trust me, certainly, um, I'm doing this on Monday morning. This is coming out on Tuesday, but I am aware, or at least we're still waiting for Boris's 50-page bombshell, which will supposedly exonerate him. But even still, he's got a lot of questions to answer, especially from the photos, the email exchanges. He ain't getting off easy. So, needless to say, we're still very much teeing up for Wednesday. I am still going to sort of do a live stream for it at 2 o'clock. I've been told that it's all going to kick off, so maybe we'll start streaming about maybe like 1:45, something like that. And then we'll see how long it goes for. We'll see. Like I say, Boris just may walk in and just go, "I'm clear. I'm exonerated. I'm that. It could last. It could last 10 minutes. We really don't know, but we'll see. We'll see." But yes, what has been the reaction locally to Tory budgets? We've heard the estimations from economic experts. We've heard a lot that the Tories' plan to expand childcare is actually so poorly thought out and so underfunded that it will actually reduce the level of childcare that parents now potentially have access to. And in all, this wonderful Tory budget, which is meant to accelerate growth, seems to be going down quicker than a lead balloon. So, what has been the reaction now of your average people on the street? And this is one that we're looking at today. We're looking at a focus group, how they responded to the Tory budget. And I think it says all in the headline, they feel like it's been a kick in the teeth. And remember, this is in a Tory area. And guess what? They talk about actively switching their votes over to Labour. So that's a good thing. So let's go diving into this then, shall we? Like I say, these types of things are always very sort of interesting indicators of potentially how could a next general election go forward. Like I say, Lee Anderson says they want to fight it on culture war issues. Well, here's the thing. Time and time again, you've tried that and you failed. And the British public say, hey, these are the issues that matter to us. And yet Lee Anderson wants to try fight it on culture war issues. Good luck. good luck on that. So let's go diving into this then, shall we? But before we do that, please do remember to click the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and one affiliation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And of course, as always, thank you very much to those people who do help support the channel that way, as well as the Pony Club down below, and of course, the YouTube thank you button as well. So let's go over into this. This one was in today's Guardian with the title of South Swindon Voters Lean to Labour After Kicking the Teeth Tory Budget. Again, doesn't sound good. So, voters in a bellwether southwest England constituency were willing to back Labour at the next election, as the quote, dead walking Conservative government has failed to ease the pressure on working people and struggling public services. In Sir Robert Buckland's MP's South Swindon seat, Jeremy Hunt's spring budget felt like a kick in the teeth, as its highest earners were rewarded with huge pension giveaways, while the working class received no gains. This sentiment of Rishi Sunak is being completely out of touch has not shifted since the autumn statement, which voters in the red wall of seat of Lee saying that the Prime Minister was absolutely not on the side of the working class, with one saying, I'm not impressed with him. He's too polished and not in touch with people, said Patrick, a 38-year-old charity manager. Hunt's expansion of free childcare, thought to be one of at least the positive aspects of his budget, appeared to come across as deceptive to voters in the South Swindon. Michelle, a 53-year-old health administrator worker who joined the diverse focus group, convened by the More in Common UK for the Guardian, questioned whether there would be enough nurseries still open by the time the policy kicks in. Jackie, a 52-year-old accountant, added this: nurseries have been struggling through COVID. Nobody went to nursery, so they closed down. Electricity prices have gone up. Wages have gone up. I think it's all a bit too little, too late, really. It sounds good. It keeps the public happy until you look further behind the announcement and you see when it's coming. Where do you find a nursery if they're all closing? And that has been one of the big responses, by the way, about this. That this is good, but it's coming a lot later than people planned. I think it's kicking in about a year or two's time. It's not going to be ready. Nurseries, as again as the person in the article point out, really hammered hard by COVID. They're very much closing down. This is going to be too little, too late, and there will not be enough nurseries for people to do it. And one of the things this has actually affected was there was a piece not too long ago by a head teacher who had been complaining about the fact that because there haven't been enough nurseries, or even especially low working class people who have been not had enough time to spend with their children when they've arrived in reception, it has been very, very detrimental to their early life and development. And it's very, very concerning. It's very, very concerning that seems to be the way that they've treated sort of education throughout, not just recently, but since they've really come into power. So this 3 months also extra extension of the energy bill support did very little to actually uplift those who voted Tory in 2019, who feared that many people would just end up putting more strain on the NHS after battling freezing temperatures because they were unable to heat their homes, and questioned what would happen once those 3 months were over. There's enough money in the government to cover all these issues. It's just how they choose to spend it. I think the HS2 is nearing £1 trillion. There's enough money to solve the energy bill crisis, said Ant of 40. So could Rachel Reeves do a better job with the public purse? Lifelong Tory voter Phil, a 56-year-old retired landscaper, had this to say. She comes across as competent and far better than previous shadow chancellors, and presents Labour as being more competent financially than they have been in the past. But he said Sir Keir Starmer still had a long way to go to be a convincing Labour leader. He doesn't come up with any ideas, does he? He's got plenty of ammunition to criticise the government and give the performance of the government over the last few years, but I don't hear any real ideas about how they're going to improve things in the future. So this is something I think Labour needs to take task, because I pay attention to what Labour have been saying. I know that there are Labour policies. We went over just yesterday about Labour's New Deal for workers, which is going to be good. It's going to be very good. And the things that they were talking about. And of course, they've got another couple of things as well. Like Rachel Reeves is going to be like Britain's greenest chancellor. Like that is an amazing moment that we are going to have. But Labour really need to focus now on starting to say, this is what we are going to deliver. This is what we are going to do. Because once they start, I think, to really do that and get their message out there, that's when it's going to have a really big impact. That's when you're going to start people say, well, actually, Keir Starmer does some have ideas. Actually, there's people on his front bench in those shadow cabinets which have some really good ideas, and I kind of like them. That's where we're going to start seeing big changes. So, but it continues. So the focus group appeared certain they were not going to back the Conservatives, saying that the people pleasers who used the red meat policies like the illegal immigration bill to garner the headlines, but the group could not even determine if they were willing to wholly support Labour, which they felt still had a historic people-pleasing strategy of throwing cash at people. So again, Labour still got a way to go, but this is very much a sort of conservative area. That's certainly for true. But they continued saying Labour won't have the money to really change things. They're great at spending money, but they won't have it there. My fear is the tax rises at the moment, they're at the highest they've ever been in 40 years. And with a Labour government, they'd only get higher again, Phil said in agreement with a few other members. Cindy, 47, said that Starmer's intentions appear to be good, but choosing Rishi Sunak over the Labour leader was the lesser of two evils. And that's something we've absolutely got to um, be warning people about. Look, if it's a choice between Rishi or Starmer, you would not choose Rishi. Rishi is not the lesser of of the two evils. Starmer is ultimately the better choice. We need to completely get rid of the Tories out of government because they've just been absolutely chaos causers. They are not up to the challenge of governing anymore. Um, and I said this. I think Starmer needs to be bold. He really needs, I think, a couple of bold policy proposals to really show he means business and he can deliver on some amazing change with a Labour government. So, over the past few weeks, the Tory party chair has been repeating the fact that when Labour last left government, Liam Blaine, the chief secretary to the Treasury, left a note saying that I'm afraid there is no money, and South Swindon voters were divided, with half of the group claiming it could have been a childish banter between the two parties. Labour would return to, quote, pleasing everyone by handing out money, said Jackie, who wondered, but where will it come from this time? Well, here's the thing. There is a lot of money out there. Even when we're raising these taxes, it's the fact that you've got a conservative government that is not willing to spend the money they've got. That's the big challenge. And one of the things we have seen, and is very, very much well worth repeating, is when you look at countries that have had big growth periods, that is always been defined by government investment. And that is what Labour are planning, a big round of big government investment. And that is important because that will really help a lot of things going. So the youngest member of the group, the 24-year-old Fleur, said that Starmer was coming across as compassionate and passionate. That's good. In trying to help people across the country, highlighting the lack of compassion with Rishi Sunak's team is something that may lose the Conservatives the next election. All members of the group, and this is something else Torella Braverman said, that people like the illegal immigration bill. Well, here's the thing: here you have people who are predominantly conservative by the sounds of it. This is what they've got to say on this. So all members of the group criticised the government's illegal immigration bill and said that they could not trust the Tories to get the grip on the Channel crisis because of their poor record over the last 13 years, and also because there was a lack of support for people desperately seeking help. It's all quite negative, unworkable, and they're just inciting hatred, said Fleur. Labour is throwing its weight at this seat, with the former MP Heidi Alexander selected as the party's parliamentary candidate to face Buckland. Alexander is deemed to be one of the many heavyweights making a comeback to frontline politics, and was a former shadow health secretary who quit under Jeremy Corbyn's lead in 2018. Colin Burns, a senior associate of More Common in UK, had this to say. This week's budget and the recent fury of government deal-making might have impressed Westminster insiders, but it wasn't simply cutting it for the voters we spoke to in South Swindon. The government might have hoped the last few weeks would have helped to at least jumpstart the Tories' electoral recovery, but this group in Swindon shows that any real recovery is a long way off. In fact, many in this group thought that Labour could have done a better job with the budget, and almost all agreed that Labour wouldn't have done a worse job. So, good signs. I think very good signs, and obviously I've said before, you know, when we look at polling, you know, always be careful when you trust the polls, because when it comes to a general election, things change, things go up in the air. You don't know what will happen. Like I say, look what happened to Theresa May, thinking that this was going to be an election about Brexit. It turned out not to be an election about Brexit at all. Turned out to be an election about sort of pensioners and heating allowance. Nothing that anyone at that time really suspected. So This is something that Labour has to be prepared for going into the next general election. We are hearing a lot of very good things. Like I say, the deal for new workers, you've got the sovereign wealth fund. There's a ton of stuff out there in the ether that Labour are talking about, that this is what we would do. But what it really needs now is to start to focus its messaging, start to say, this is what we're looking at, this is what we're going to do. And of course, putting it in a manifesto. Now, I think Starmer could steal a massive leap on Rishi Sunak by basically going, yeah, look, we think there's going to be a general election this year. So tell you what, here's our manifesto. Get out ahead of them. And he mustn't be afraid to change it. Now, I know that's people may criticize him for doing that, but if Starmer goes, well, look, we had this policy, we thought it was a good idea, but actually people have come on and thought, well, that's a good idea, but maybe if we did it like this, it might be better, then there's nothing wrong with that because, hey, we had this policy, but now people have said, oh, well, actually, if you did it like this, it might be better. Well, why not? So Starmer, I think, could get the jump on the Conservatives, on Rishi Sunak especially, if he is bold and brave enough to release a pre-election manifesto. I think that could have a big impact because we've said there, currently Labour messaging, it's out there, but it is not yet quite cutting through. It's getting there, but it's not quite there yet. And it needs to really sort of get out there in a very clear, concise way. And when that starts to happen, the seat of South Swindon becomes really winnable because it is, and it does come down to messaging. We've seen this with the Liberal Democrats. Their messaging has been for the past couple of years awful. And I've described them before as the ghost party because it really doesn't feel like they're there. But good for Starmer, good for the team. I think this next general election is Starmer's to win. I really think it is. It's his to win. And if he is brave, if he is bold, he will win it. And my worry is that they play it safe. And that because they play it safe, either A, the Conservatives just hang on in a very, very much reduced minority government, or we get a hung parliament. I would far, far rather see what we've been seeing in these polls of a complete and utter Tory wipeout than, well, either a hung parliament or just a continuing Tory, very small, with the Tories just winning with a very small Tory majority. And it all comes down to the fact Starmer has to be brave, has to be bold, and he has to help bring forward some really good policies that can really capture the imaginations of the public. And until he starts to do that, I'm still slightly worried they're going to play it safe. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a motivation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And of course, we'll see you all next time.